Good morning, you all. How are you this morning? Good morning. Try that again. Good morning. I know it's getting close to the afternoon. We're all ready for lunch, obviously, but I want to introduce myself and give you guys a little preface about the talk. This is your special abilities and Python, and our expectations for this particular session is we're going to learn a little bit about accessibility and understand accessibility. And it's really going to be not very extensive because my time here is so limited, but we'll try to dive in as much as we can. We're also going to identify helpful resources for your special abilities, and then we're going to empower you all, and I say we, but it's really just me up here, and I'm going to empower you all for further investigation because as programmers, developers, designers, we know that it's up to us to dive deeper into learning and understand because we are all inherently lifelong learners. Tag, you're it. If you want to tweet live, here are all the tags you can use, the hashtags, as well as some information about my Twitter accounts. This is actually my company logo. So obviously it's not me, but it is, the tweets are directly from me. No one else has access to my tweets. So as well, if you would like to view the slides on your mobile device or your laptop, you can follow that bit.ly link right there, Pi Abilities. And I believe it is case sensitive, so the P will be capitalized and the A for abilities will be. That's what I thought, yeah. Alrighty. So, who am I and why am I qualified to give this talk? That's a great question. So, before we get into this, I want to do a shout out. Do we have anybody here from Windsor? No? No? Oh my gosh. Do we have people here from Toronto, obviously? Is that the extent of the room? Okay, shout out some other areas of Ontario real quick for me. Ottawa, okay, all right. Anywhere else? Slovakia. Okay. And the reason I asked because I came over all the way from Lake Ontario. I came from Detroit today to give this talk. So I wanted to see if I had anybody here from Windsor, which is like our kissing cousins, but no. All right. So I'm alone. All right. So a little bit about me. I worked as a speech pathologist for a number of years. I had the pleasure of helping little babies that said "lello," say "yellow." It was such a pleasure to work with people who had articulation disorders and dyslexia and stuttering. And it really kind of eclipsed my career because I started looking further into communicative devices and I saw how cool it was that there were assistive technology that people could like move their eyes and it would communicate and tell you what they were thinking or saying. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary. So I moved to Detroit and I did a coding boot camp. I learned Java and Python. And after learning those two, I started working as a software engineer. And I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it because it was very structured, very rigid where I worked at. It was a corporate space. So I created my own company called Barely Articulating. And what I do is I go to different corporate structures and help them to create a pipeline so that they can retain individuals who have special needs, who are autistic, who are dyslexic, who have ADHD. How do we get those individuals into the workforce and how do we keep them there? So that's kind of what I do. Sidebar, right now I'm reading Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, It's All Small Stuff. And a little quick thing about me, I still have my college car. So I love my car. Her name is Coconut. So, and she has over 200,000 miles, but she's still riding. And yeah, so that's just a quick little tidbit about me and who I am. So let's look at the stats. Let's look at the score report here and go back. So 1 in 5 people have a disability. 27% of people believe autism is only a disorder that affects children. And there has been at least 42% of an increase in ADHD diagnosis. So to me, that's a little peculiar, and we can actually dive into those definitions because I know a lot of people with ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and some of you may not know exactly what that is, but basically, it is a disorder that causes you to have issues with developing social skills. And that can range from having language disorders or being unable to really communicate with your peers or having difficulties in certain social settings. I'm not sure if you all watch Sesame Street, but they just introduced a character. Her name is, oh man, because my 5-year-old loves her. I can't think of her name right now, but anywho, she has autism, and you'll see it with her how sometimes she'll acknowledge when Elmo talks to her, other times she won't. So it's really, it's great to see that they're introducing that to children so they can identify this particular disorder. As it relates to ADHD, that is an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and that basically causes issues with focusing and staying on task. And as an adult, I can say that I may have some tendencies of ADHD because I can be working on a project and somehow I'll be on Facebook. Like, how did that happen? I was just working here and now I've gotten redirected and I'm looking at someone's vacation photos from like 2012. I don't know. But I say that to say that these are some very prevalent issues that we face in society. And I don't know if I would necessarily call them issues. I call them special abilities. So this is a depiction. I cannot tell you who the comic is. I've Googled it and tried to do all type of searches, but no one was privy to who created this. But this to me is very symbolic. It says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So the elephant obviously is going to fail that exam, and so is the penguin, the fish, and the seal, and the dog. So as it relates to programming and developing and just the tech stratosphere, we sometimes see that our special abilities aren't being tested adequately. You know, we can provide certain things to our team, but we may not be able to climb the tree as a penguin. All right, so we're gonna veer off of the road just a little bit. I gave you guys just some definitions, some things to think about, and we're gonna talk more about accessibility because that's a really big, prevalent word that everyone is using. That's like a buzz phrase. So what is accessibility? So as you see, people always use the A11Y, and which is ally. I did a conference yesterday, Michigan Developers Fest, and it was just funny how the guys, there were some older gentlemen, and they did not even understand accessibility, and I was like, great, this is my opportunity to tell you guys about it. So it's basically a numeronym, and as you see, the 11 letters in the middle are broken down because nobody wants to really write that out. Hashtag ACCESSIBILITY. So they've used the number nym A11Y. And let's talk about what that means for people with special abilities. So Rachel Cherry, she's a former Disney senior software engineer, and she's the founder of WordPress Campus. She said, as it relates to accessibility on the web, accessibility is how people perceive, understand, navigate, interact with, and contribute to the web. So as you can imagine, those with autism, those with maybe ADHD, dyslexia, and a plethora of other ailments, they may have issues with going on to sites and perceiving, understanding, navigating, and interacting, and also contributing to the web. So we are going to bake some banana bread, all right? Some banana nut bread. Who's down? All right, good. So we have all our ingredients. They're laid out before us right there. We have our bananas, we have our walnuts, our eggs, our flour, our dough, and we're getting ready to just pound that dough. So pound the dough with me. Come on, pound the dough with me. All right, everybody is not pounding, but okay. Look, this reminds me of the story of the hen when she was baking the bread. Nobody wanted to help her, but when the bread was baked and it was done, everybody was like, "Can I have some?" So anywho, so we're so we're pounding the bread. We are making some banana nut bread, and we have all the ingredients. And we put it in the oven. We preheat the oven beforehand, and we're ready. We're excited. We smell it. So we start to sweep the house, maybe do a little dusting as we're smelling all of that good bread, that dough forming in the oven. And then we take it out and we realize, oh my gosh, we forgot to put the banana and the walnuts in the banana nut bread. So I say this and I use this analogy because that's how it is when we think about accessibility. A lot of times we do not bake it into the core of our websites, into the core of our code, into our programming. We wait till after the fact when QA has to come along and tell us, okay, you have to do this and that and this and that, when all along we should be considering baking in and embedding our code with accessibility tools and techniques. Okay, because I think about nowadays, security is so important. Everything that we do as it relates to creating code, we want to make sure it's secure and that nobody can access it. However, we drop the ball because we don't even consider accessibility. And one of my good friends wrote this tweet, and I said, this makes a whole lot of sense as it relates to accessibility. What happens when you don't include captions with your videos? You restrict your audience to people who can hear and speak your language. Expand your audience, add captions. I thought this was pretty fundamental because we're in a city where it's a melting pot. We have some people speaking French, people speaking English. I mean, I've heard some Italian this morning. I'm like, wow. So what happens when you don't include those captions? Nothing. So we're changing the directions really swiftly, and we're going to talk more about specific disabilities, including dyslexia, autism, and ADHD. So we're going to play a game of Kahoot, and I think we have a little time. What am I looking like on time? Okay. Okay, good. So we'll play a quick game just to see how much you all really know about these special abilities that you possess. So with that in mind, I am going to give you a game code. You can pull up your phone and just type in the search engine Kahoot into your Chrome search engine or Internet Explorer. You can do it on your computer, your desktop, not desktop, your laptop as well. Okay? So let's see. Player versus player. Is it going to let me do it? Nope. All right, let's see. Okay, we're going to do the classic mode. All right, so in just a second, I'll be giving you the game code, and you can put it in, and we can go from there, all right? So our game PIN code is 6452610. Again, that is 6452610. So I see on my left side a ton of players joining, which is awesome because we want a little competition to see who knows what. So this works. All right, so I'm going to give us another minute, and then I'm going to get started. And for those who don't have access to a phone right now or laptop, it's all good. You're going to see it right here on the big screen, so don't fret. All right, we'll get started. So many more people are joining. All right, so don't diss my ability. 3 questions. So social economic status is factored into a diagnosis of autism, ADHD, and or dyslexia. What that means is if you are maybe poor, you have a greater chance of getting autism, ADHD, or dyslexia. Is that true? What do you all think? I see we got a ton of answers in. Moving on. All right, so it looks like it's almost half and half. So this is how I'll debunk that for you all. Just because you may have more money or less money, that does not affect whether you will have autism, ADHD, and dyslexia. A lot of it is neurologically based, and majority of it is genetics. So regardless if you are poor or rich, if your mom had dyslexia, it's a good chance that you'll have it as well. And vice versa with ADHD and autism. So it's good to see that you guys were like, some people thought so, some people didn't, a little borderline. But to debunk that, that is false. The diagnosis is not prevalent to how much money your parents make or your family status at all. But what we have seen in the past that children who come from backgrounds that are wealthy, they get more support, they get early intervention, they get help early on so that they can go through life and basically be able to stay above water and float a little more so than those whose parents aren't able to afford the private tutor or, to provide the speech therapists and behavioral therapists. All right. So it looks like Manage PY was the quickest to get that in. All right. Dyslexia and ADHD commonly occur together. Is that true or is that false? All right. You guys are quick with those fingers, man. All right, to answer that question, wow, again, it looks like you all are just, leveling it out. So, as it relates to dyslexia and ADHD, 60% of those with dyslexia also have ADHD. Now, there's research saying this, there's research saying that. I believe that it contributes from the fact that those with dyslexia have difficulties reading and writing, so they develop borderline issues because they can't stay focused. Because why would you really want to stay focused in class when you're not able to keep up to speed? It just kind of makes sense to me. But again, I don't have any empirical evidence that says that my decision is or my thoughts are worthwhile. Moving on. EC, all right. Hello. Douglas Anderson, okay. All right, you guys. Last question. Boys have received an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis 4 times more frequently than girls. Oh, and then this is the little girl on Sesame Street I was talking about. Julie is her name. Now that I see her, I know her name. Got to put the face with the name, All right, so that is true. So especially in Canada, I looked up some statistics here, and it appears that boys are 4 times more likely to get a diagnosis than girls. And I believe this is biased, and I will say this. A lot of young girls and young women, we suffer in silence. Boys, if they don't understand something quite well in class, they're cutting up. They're jumping off the tables, throwing papers. But girls will sit there and just kind of, do nothing but look like we're busy. So that can definitely affect that. That can certainly affect that particular element. All right, so it looks like EC is the winner. And then hello and A. I don't have any prizes, but thanks for playing along. All right, so moving back along, this is the part where you all are going to want to take notes. Okay, giving you a little time to get those note pens, those notepads and pens out. Or you can just pull up a Google Doc and share it with everybody. We're so tech savvy here. So, all right, so as it relates to programmers need internet filters, page simplifiers, and syntax checkers. Okay, so if you are a programmer and you have special abilities, these are things that you are going to benefit from. An internet filter could be something like NetNanny or Surfy. A page simplifier could be something that removes buttons and ads. And if you're using Firefox, you could just simply use Simplify Page or Rewordify. As it relates to syntax checkers, a lot of our IDEs have built-in capabilities where it'll catch the grammar for us. So if we have some issues with spelling, it'll catch it and let us know. Then we'll get a bug, right? Or an error message. And you can also check out Grammarly. Okay, these are things that programmers with special abilities benefit from. Internet filters, which help it kind of filters the unwanted content and screen time. Page simplifiers, which removes buttons and ads, and syntax checkers, which help with spelling. All right. And users. So if you have special abilities and you're on the web, you're not necessarily a programmer or an engineer, software engineer. You're just, just a designer, maybe. What is helpful for you can be contrasting colors. You can look at some apps and some tools on how to utilize different color contrasts and what is beneficial to those who have low vision or dyslexia. Okay. You can look at WebAIM, Color Checker, or Color Safe. Text magnifiers. Those are obviously helpful for those who have low vision and they need to see something with clarity. You can use Zoom Text and Pocket Glasses. These are apps that I've found on my Android device, and I thought they were pretty useful. Finally, you may need a screen reader. If you have difficulties with reading and not necessarily having low vision, but you just have a hard time reading things, you may have dyslexia. So with that in mind, you could use Chrome Vox and Spoken Web. Those are very helpful screen readers for those of us with special abilities. All right. So since my time is very short and cut off, I'm going to kind of zoom through this. These are some laws that protect those with special abilities. And as I mentioned, I do have the slides that you can access, so you can pull up this information at another time. All right. So our next step, show up. So give yourselves a hand clap because you showed up here today. Okay. So that's the hardest part, just to be present and understand a little bit more about your special ability. Learn what works best for you. I gave you a couple different notes, some tools that I shared because trial and error is what you'll have to go through, my friend. And finally, be the change that you want to see. Advocate, advocate, advocate. If you go to a website and you don't like the way it's looking, especially if it's a corporate company and they're making some bank, you can, send an email and let them know, hey, it was difficult for me to read your text. Why didn't you have transcriptions under your videos that you had? The color contrast threw me all the way off. There you go. All right. Again, this is for you all to view the slides. And if you want to tag PyCon Canada or myself, hashtag all that good stuff. There you go. All right, I'm all done.
We have some time for questions.
No questions. Yes. No, I'm just playing. Yes.
Are there any sites or anywhere where you'd be able to get like developer resources to make this more accessible, like to get these accessibilities into your site, or like
It's a couple different tools.
Where you'd go?
I'm sorry for cutting you off too. I apologize. I'm a rambler, so.
That's all right. I was just wondering if you could suggest any sites that we'd be able to do that. That would be really great.
Yeah, of course. So Project Ally, A11Y, has tons of resources. I've also seen some repositories in GitHub that has some really cool testing tools for you all to make sure that your sites are up to par. Yep. So those are two resources. Oh, and Totally Ally. Well, it's Totally, but it's TOTA11Y. That's a great site as well. WebAIM, WEBAIM, has resources as well. So I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll tweet them. Any more questions? Feedback is good too. Anybody want to share something that I missed? Maybe? No, I didn't miss anything. That's good.
There's also a really good article called User Interface for People with Autism Spectrum Disorders that goes through UI, UX best practices from a whole bunch of different companies and a whole bunch of research. And it's by Nikolai Pavlov. And I'll share the link with you if you want to tweet it later.
And that name sounds familiar too, Nikolai Pavlov. Okay. Yeah. Share that. Hashtag me in it. And I'll send it back out. And what I'll be doing with this particular slide presentation, I'll probably go, because I'm kind of like low-key a perfectionist, so I'll be going in adding more resources as I think of them. So You guys will have all the info about Web Ally. Anybody else? Well, it's almost lunchtime, so hey.